Have you ever been in a room when the game is on and felt absolutely nothing? In a world where millions plan their weekends around kickoff, where grown men paint their faces and scream at strangers on a screen, where entire economies rise and fall on the bounce of a ball, some people just don't care. Not because they're trying to be difficult, not because they weren't exposed to it. They simply look at the spectacle and feel like they're watching a transmission meant for someone else. Most assume these people are antisocial or contrarian, or just don't understand the rules, but psychology tells a different story. People who don't obsess over sports aren't missing something. They've recognized something that most fans haven't even thought to question. Let's start with the tribal pull. Sports fandom is, at its core, tribalism. Us versus them. Your city against theirs, your colours against theirs. And for most of human history, this instinct kept us alive. Belonging to a group meant protection. Being cast out meant death. Modern sports hijack this ancient wiring. When your team scores, your brain releases testosterone and dopamine as if you personally achieved something. Studies have shown that fans experience genuine hormonal shifts after wins and losses, the same chemical responses our ancestors had after a successful hunt or a territorial victory. Researchers even documented this during elections. In 2008, men who voted for Obama showed significantly higher testosterone levels after he won compared to those who voted for McCain. The brain doesn't distinguish between your team winning the Super Bowl and your candidate winning the White House. Victory is victory, and defeat is defeat. But here's what's interesting about people who don't get swept up in this. Their brains aren't broken. They aren't lacking the tribal instinct. They've simply developed a higher threshold for what triggers it. To them, loyalty based on geography feels arbitrary. The team you're supposed to support is determined by where your parents happened to live when you were born. The players change every season. The owners are billionaires who would move the franchise tomorrow if another city offered a better stadium deal. The US you're supposed to feel loyal to is a legal fiction wrapped in merchandise. People who don't obsess over sports have looked at this arrangement and their brain has simply said, "This isn't my tribe." The signal doesn't land. They're not rejecting connection. They're seeking it somewhere more authentic. In communities built around shared ideas, shared creations, shared values rather than shared colours. This is a conscious choice for a different kind of belonging. One that doesn't reset every season. Then there's the question of cognitive real estate. Your brain has limited capacity for deep investment. Think about what it actually takes to be a real fan. Not a casual observer, but someone who truly follows a sport. You need to know the players, their histories, their stats. You need to understand the strategies, the rivalries, the trades. You need to track standings, follow news, remember moments from seasons past. This requires enormous mental bandwidth. It's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle. Many people who don't follow sports have simply allocated that space elsewhere. Their passion slot is already occupied. Maybe it's music, maybe it's markets, maybe it's mastering something, maybe it's understanding something that most people never take the time to study. It's not that they couldn't learn the game, it's that their brain has already constructed its own arena for a different pursuit entirely. The stadium is full. There's no room for another obsession, and they've made a calculation, consciously or not, about where that mental energy is better spent. They've looked at the return on investment. Hours spent memorizing batting averages versus hours spent developing a skill. Emotional energy tied to outcomes they can't control versus energy invested in outcomes they can, and they've made their choice. Now let's talk about the mirror neuron question. Your brain contains cells called mirror neurons. These fire not only when you perform an action, but when you watch someone else perform it. It's why you flinch when you see someone get hit. It's why watching an athlete sprint toward the goal can make your heart race as if you were running yourself. Scientists monitoring both athletes and spectators have found the same regions of the brain lighting up, as if the viewer were actually playing the game. When you watch a quarterback throw a perfect spiral, your motor cortex activates. When you see a striker score, the reward centers in your brain fire, as if you were the one who put it in the net. This is the neurological basis of sports obsession. You're not just watching. On some level, you're participating. But here's the thing about mirror neurons. They require identification. You have to see yourself in the person you're watching. You have to feel like their victory could be your victory. You have to believe, on some level, that you and they are connected. People who don't obsess over sports often have a different identification pattern. They might get that same neurological rush watching a musician nail a difficult passage, or a craftsman complete something beautiful with their hands. Their mirror neurons work fine, they just fire for different heroes. The question isn't whether they can feel that borrowed glory, the question is who they've chosen to borrow it from. And this leads to perhaps the deepest distinction. Sports offer a prepackaged narrative. The drama is handed to you. The stakes are predetermined. The heroes and villains are assigned. All you have to do is show up and consume. The story unfolds without any effort on your part. You simply receive it. There's nothing wrong with this. Humans need stories. We've gathered around them since we learned to speak. The campfire just got bigger and moved to a stadium. But the mind of the person who doesn't follow sports is often wired differently. They're not drawn to consume narratives. They're driven to create them. The hours others spend watching, they spend building. The emotional investment others put into a team season, they put into their own projects, their own pursuits, their own long games. They're not spectators waiting to see how someone else's story ends. They're writing their own. They're inventing the game and writing the rules as they go. This isn't about superiority. It's about orientation. Some people are built to watch the game, others are built to invent their own. Now let's address the social cost, because there is one. And anyone who doesn't follow sports knows exactly what I'm talking about. Sports are social currency. It's the default conversation starter in offices, at barbecues, in bars. It's a universal handshake. When you don't have an answer, there's a moment of awkwardness. A small wall goes up. You're suddenly an outsider in a conversation everyone else can participate in. People who don't follow sports have learned to navigate this. Some fake it, nodding along and hoping nobody asks a follow-up question. Some redirect, steering the conversation elsewhere. Some have simply accepted that certain social circles will remain partially closed to them. But here's what they've also discovered. The relationships that don't require sports talk are often deeper. When you can't fall back on the game, you have to find other common ground. You have to actually learn what someone thinks, what they're building, what they care about, what keeps them up at night. The conversations get more personal faster. The surface-level small talk evaporates because you don't have a default topic to hide behind. People who don't follow sports have been forced to develop a different social toolkit, and in many cases it serves them better in the long run. They've discovered which relationships require a shared interest in sports to survive, and which ones don't need it at all. There's also the question of presence. Think about what happens during a big game. Time stops. For 3 hours, nothing else matters. Work disappears. Problems dissolve. You're completely absorbed in something outside yourself. That's a form of meditation. It's an escape. And for many people, it's healthy. It's a pressure valve, a way to step outside your own life for a while. But people who don't follow sports have found other ways to achieve that state. They've built their own rituals, their own absorptions, their own escapes. The workshop, the studio, the instrument, the project that makes time disappear. And often those escapes produce something. A skill developed, a project advanced, a creation completed, something that didn't exist before exists now. They're not against escape. They've just chosen escapes with different returns. And here's what's worth noting. They're not judging fans. Most of them understand the appeal completely. They see the joy in their friends' faces when their team wins. They recognize the community, the tradition, the shared experience. They just know it's not for them. And they've made peace with that. So what does all this add up to? People who don't obsess over sports aren't deficient. They aren't antisocial. They aren't missing some gene that everyone else has. They've simply opted out of one particular tribal structure in favor of others. They've allocated their cognitive real estate to different pursuits. They've wired their mirror neurons to different heroes. They've chosen to write narratives rather than watch them unfold on a field. Their silence during the game isn't emptiness, it's the hum of a different engine. It's the sound of a mind that's building something, rather than watching something. It's not that they don't understand the appeal, most of them do. They've just looked at the transaction, the time, the emotional investment, the borrowed identity, and decided the exchange rate doesn't work for them. They've figured out something that took others decades to learn, if they ever learned it at all. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Where you point it shapes who you become, and there's nothing wrong with choosing to point it somewhere other than the scoreboard. Some of the most interesting people you'll ever meet made exactly that choice a long time ago. That's not withdrawal from life. That's a different kind of participation, one where you're not watching someone else's championship, you're building your own. Drop a comment and share your story. And if this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe because we dive deep into psychology that actually explains how your mind works. See you next time.